What if I told you that everything you've been doing to become successful is dead wrong? Right now, thousands of people are grinding 16-hour days, sacrificing their health, their relationships, their happiness, and getting nowhere. But there are a select few who cracked a secret so powerful, so counterintuitive, that it feels almost illegal. In the next few minutes, I'm going to hand you that exact secret, and it will change the way you think forever. Don't you dare click away, because what's coming next? You've never seen anything like this? Picture this. It's 2 a.m, and somewhere in a quiet suburb, a woman who spent the last 20 years of her life inside Scientology is sitting on the edge of her bed, hands trembling, phone pointed at her face, and she presses record. She doesn't have a publicist. She doesn't have a lawyer standing by. She doesn't have a major network backing her story. What she has is a TikTok account, a ring light she bought for $30, and a truth that has been locked inside her chest for so long, it has started to feel like it might suffocate her. She starts talking, and the world starts listening. For decades, the Church of Scientology had mastered the art of silence, burying lawsuits before they reached courtrooms, dispatching legal teams to crush journalists before their stories ever saw print, and making critics disappear from public life so quietly that most people never even noticed they were gone. The organization had spent millions, possibly hundreds of millions, constructing an impenetrable wall around its secrets. Then came an algorithm that doesn't care about money, doesn't respond to cease and desist letters, and cannot be intimidated into compliance. What followed wasn't just a cultural moment. It was the sound of that wall beginning to crack, one 30-second video at a time. To truly understand why TikTok hit Scientology like a freight train, you first have to reckon with how this organization managed to survive and thrive for so long in the shadows. Founded by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard in the early 1950s, Scientology didn't just build an empire. It engineered one, brick by calculated brick, using a lethal combination of self-help philosophy, carefully curated celebrity worship, and a legal machine so ferocious it made grown journalists flinch. At the dark heart of this machine was a policy known as fair game, an internal doctrine that didn't just permit the church to go after its critics, it authorized it. Harassment, lawsuits, systematic character destruction. Reporters who dared to dig too deep found themselves drowning in litigation. Former members who finally found the courage to speak were met not with silence, but with coordinated campaigns designed to dismantle their lives piece by piece. For decades, this culture of fear didn't just work, it was airtight. The internet cracked the door open slightly, with underground forums and whistleblower sites chipping away at the wall through the late 90s and early 2000s. But those voices existed on the margins, and the church still had the money and the muscle to fight back. It had survived the internet once before. It was absolutely convinced it could do it again. It was wrong. The TikTok wave wasn't led by journalists or seasoned activists. It was ignited by ordinary people who had lived inside the organization, survived it, and walked away carrying secrets the world had never been allowed to hear. Former members began posting videos with a raw, unscripted energy that felt nothing like the polished documentaries or carefully worded investigative reports that came before. They sat alone in parked cars at midnight, stood barefoot in their kitchens, and looked directly into their phone cameras with a trembling honesty that was almost impossible to watch, and completely impossible to look away from. They spoke about disconnection, the church's chilling practice of forcing members to sever all contact with family and friends who dared to leave or speak out. They described financial exploitation so aggressive it left people bankrupt, members pressured, manipulated, and shamed into spending tens of thousands of dollars on courses and auditing sessions they were told they desperately needed. They revealed stories of psychological warfare, sleep deprivation, and a suffocating culture of fear and shame so powerful it kept people trapped for years, sometimes decades. The comments sections erupted. Millions fell into the rabbit hole, one video leading to another, then another, each testimony more haunting than the last. The algorithm rewarded the chaos, and the engagement was absolutely volcanic. But here's what no one saw coming. The more these voices grew, the more the organization seemed to push back. So what exactly happened when they did? What happened next wasn't just a PR crisis. It was a structural collapse of a carefully engineered illusion. For decades, Scientology had weaponized celebrity culture, using the gravitational pull of Hollywood names to deflect scrutiny and normalize its practices to millions of ordinary people. Parents enrolled their children. Couples rebuilt their marriages around its teachings. Individuals surrendered savings, careers, and family relationships, all partly because the faces endorsing it from red carpets and magazine covers made it feel legitimate, even aspirational. TikTok didn't just challenge that illusion, it systematically dismantled it, frame by frame, comment by comment, duet by duet. Former members who had spent years being dismissed as bitter or unstable suddenly found themselves believed, not by a journalist behind a paywall, but by millions of strangers who stayed up until 3 a.m. watching their stories. The human cost that the church had buried under NDAs and legal threats was now living rent-free in the algorithm. And when the cease and desist letters arrived, they didn't silence anyone. They became content themselves, proof of exactly the suppression people had been warned about. The organization that had survived congressional hearings, documentary exposés, and decades of investigative journalism was now losing ground to teenagers with ring lights. But here's the question no one has fully answered yet. When an institution this powerful, this legally fortified, and this deeply embedded in the lives of its members begins to crack under public pressure, what actually happens to the people still inside? The impact of the TikTok trend extended far beyond the platform itself. Mainstream news outlets began covering the story of the story, reporting on how social media was reshaping public perception of Scientology. Podcasts dedicated entire series to the topic. Former members who had been speaking out for years suddenly found massive new audiences. Legal organizations that support cult survivors reported significant increases in inquiries and requests for help. Perhaps most importantly, the trend appeared to have a measurable impact on recruitment. Reports from former members and independent researchers suggested that the church was struggling to bring in new members, particularly among younger demographics who had grown up seeing Scientology content on their feeds. The organization that had once used celebrity culture and slick marketing to attract young people found that the same generation was now its most vocal critics. The numbers told a stark story. Membership figures, always closely guarded by the church, appeared to be declining significantly. Properties were being sold. Staff were leaving. The financial pressure that comes from shrinking membership was becoming increasingly difficult to hide. What you have just witnessed is not simply a story about an app and a church. This is a seismic moment in human history. A turning point where the voiceless found their voice, where the hidden was dragged into the blinding light, and where millions of ordinary people armed with nothing but their truth rewrote the rules of power forever. Think about that for a moment. No press credentials, no corporate backing, no legal army, just human beings standing in front of a camera saying, "This happened to me," and shaking an institution that has silenced critics for decades. That is extraordinary. That is breathtaking. That is the world we now live in, and it is more powerful than anything we have ever seen before. Stories like this one deserve to be told loudly, told boldly, and told without apology, because every time the truth is spoken, it makes the next truth a little easier to say. This is why we do what we do here at Lead North CXO. So if this story moved you, challenged you, or made you see the world differently, we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts, your reactions, your feelings in the comments below, because your voice matters here just as much as anyone else's. And if you believe that stories like this deserve to reach more people, please subscribe to the Lead North CXO YouTube channel and help us keep bringing these powerful, world-shaping narratives straight to you. We are just getting started, and the next story we are bringing you, trust us, you will not want to miss it. Stay with us, stay curious, stay fearless.